So I'm going to demonstrate today about colorful shadows and highlights as well. Specifically, if you'll take note about things like his shoulder pad right here. It's supposed to be white color in the end, but it's got a bunch of turquoise shadows and stuff hanging out in there. Same with his sword on his back here. There's a bunch of turquoise. It ends up white in the end, but there are a lot of really colorful shadows. His cloak as well, his cape, how it's highlighted with a lot of yellow, and there's some blue in the shadows and the recesses here. So I kind of want to show you a few techniques of how to pull that off and how to make your model look a lot more colorful. So starting off with, we've got a straight green cloak, cape. It's boring, just green. So you can start with just a dark green and work it up to lighter greens, or you can start adding more colors. And when you start adding more colors, it's good to keep in mind, do you want it to be warm colors or do you want it to be cold colors? This one I'm going to go a lot warmer with the green. So I'll start with the shadows first and put some blue inside. And a lot of this is achieved through washes and stuff, so water your brush down real good. Just a basic brush, nothing special. You don't need too fine point of details. The highlight will get more into dry brushing, but the shadows is mostly washes. So load up your brush, water it down pretty good, and start just painting it right into the cracks. It's alright if you get hard lines with the shadows because we're going to be adding some more layers, so don't worry about getting it crazy smooth. But really letting the model do the work for you, because there are already these really nice wrinkles already sculpted into the model, and letting that blue pool up in there and do the work for you. Lots of fun. I love doing colors like these. And it's a really effective technique for skin as well. Adding a lot of purples in the shadows of skin and faces, things like that, it makes the model look so much more colorful and very, very interesting to the eye, very eye-catching. It isn't just about, having a really cool wet blend technique, but actually letting things pop and be bright for you. So I've put some blue in there, let it dry for a bit, and I'm going to add a bit of purple as well. Pretty much when you're adding colorful shadows, the main rule is to stay away from black and white. Black for the shadows and white for the highlights. Those do have their place when you're doing black armor, like right here. Even then, I used a light blue to highlight him. I didn't use a whole lot of white on him. But with your shadows, if it's going to be cold, I'd really recommend a really dark blue. If it's going to be warm, do some more purple. The green, I went ahead and added some blue because it really complements the green well, but it's definitely going to end up warm when I'm done. That's why I'm adding the purple. And the purple, I'm not going to add as much because I really like the blue in the cracks, but still kind of wash it in there and mix it around. You really have to use an artistic eye for this sort of thing. There are no real set rules, but just let it enhance the green, make it look nicer.
Maybe the next time you do that, can you explain how to make the wash with your paint?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do that right now. So as far as getting the right consistency for the washes, it's really up to you if you want it to be really dark, really dark. You want to add a super dark, stark line. You can pretty much just put straight paint on your brush and stick it in the cracks. If you're wanting to go lighter, more subtle with it, start watering it down more. It's really up to you. But how much water you want to use, I'm loading up my brush quite a bit with water, and you can kind of see just smearing around the pigment. I don't have a ton. I leave most of my pigment hanging out right there and just kind of grab a little bit of it when I need it, but nothing too crazy. So it's a lot like dry brushing, how you feel it on your hand and kind of figure out how much pigment you want on your brush or not, or a little, a lot. It's really up to the feel for it and what looks good on the model. Just keep painting on it, keep working it, going back to your blue, going back to your purple, whatever. Just smear it on there, mix it on there, and it'll look great. Again, not worrying too much about these hard lines ending up here because I'm gonna go in and dry brush some more green and then work it up to yellow. All right, so I've let that dry for a bit. You can see it's definitely muted down a lot of the green that I had down originally. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some more. Keeping in mind the gradient that you want going on here. You know, the dark Prussian is the darkest, then purple, then green, and then I'm probably gonna work it up to a lime and then maybe a yellow. So those are my supporting colors. This is the main color I want to achieve. I want the cloak to look green in the end. I don't want it to look purple. I don't want it to look lime green. So keeping that in mind, the ratio of how much green you put on and where you want to put it on, just keep that in mind. But washes, I use washes primarily to get the shadows because when you water it down, it really lets the paint sink into the cracks. But when I start adding highlights, I'm going to dry brush it because I really want to skate over the top of things. I don't want to get my bright parts into the cracks because that never looks good. Okay, so dry brushing it with an appropriately sized dry brush. You know, it's not terribly big. A little along the lines of focus dry brushing. But get most of your paint off and just kind of scooter it on there in these big folds right here where the light is really going to catch. Putting that on there, not being too afraid of getting my brush up close to the blue and the purple parts that I've already put on because it's dry brush and it's kind of messy and it's not meant to really sink down in there. So you can already see that it's not nearly as subtle as putting on the blue and the purple. You can see it already starting to pop. Definitely looking a lot better than that original just flat green we had going on. And it pops a lot more than if I had just put dark green into the cracks or even black. It really stands out because you've got purple in there and blue. Makes it for really bright. So that green is on there, and I'm going to go ahead and add some lime green after that. Keeping in mind it's the next step brighter, so I want to add less than what I've already put down. All right. And again, with that dry brushing technique, it's always good to start in a spot that you know is going to have probably the biggest amount of the color that you're putting down. This lime green, I know, right here is going to catch a lot of the light. And so it's okay if I have a little too much or maybe a little less than what I actually want pigment, because I'm not quite sure until I actually start putting it on the model. It's okay if you're in an area that's going to have a lot of that color because it's very forgiving. Look at that pop, super easy stuff. All right, that's on there, and then I'm gonna add my final highlight, which is gonna be a yellow. And yellow, I love yellow. It highlights just about anything. I would stay away from highlighting blues with yellow because blues are generally very cold, but green works great with highlighting with yellow. Any sort of purple, skin can be highlighted with yellow sometimes if you want it to be like a real dusky type skin. Red, of course, highlights wonderfully with yellow. You need just barely any, not a ton, just the very edges, and it really makes it pop. Yeah, I'm known to say quite often yellow makes everything better. If you just add a little bit, it's really eye-catching. It's quite fantastic. And if you, right now it's a pretty darn good finished piece. If you want to make it pop even more, you can take a flat brush and just water it down a little bit, add a bit of paint, and you can edge it yourself. Just put a a straight line of that yellow on there. Or your highest highlight, whatever you end up, doesn't have to be yellow, though I highly recommend yellow. And just kind of sketch it on there, scribble it on there. It's nothing too drastic, just the very edges to make it really pop. And there you have it. Making colorful shadows and colorful highlights. You don't have to stay within the spectrum of the color that you want it to look. These are definitely not green, and that's not green, but they complement the green wonderfully. All right, so I wanted to talk a bit about, along the lines of colorful shadows and stuff, what colors to choose when you're not doing green like I just demonstrated. I wanted to show off this guy right here. He's not finished, but I wanted to focus on his skin. His skin has a ton of different colors in it. It's highlighted with yellow, and the shadows are really purpley. And there's quite a bit of red in there as well, some really dark bricky red. A lot of times when you're painting really organic things and you want the colorful shadows, it's really just about feeling it, looking at maybe a reference picture saying, this guy, his skin looks kind of olivey, so you pick an olive color, or this guy, he's very red and kind of orangey colored to match his feathers and stuff. So use reference pictures. But a good thing to keep in mind, I guess, for shadows is pretty much the warm and the cold is your dark Prussian and your purple. Purple will make it warm, blue will make it cold. If you're working with some red or something like that, you can start with this whole red, maybe even go to purple. Then you can work it up to like a cavalry brown. It's kind of a bricky red color. And then your main color being red, a real bright red will do. And then you can keep on highlighting it up from there. Add some orange and then add some yellow. Being very careful with adding these because you can easily make what you're highlighting read as orange in the end if you're not careful with it. Make sure this is your main color that you're supporting it with. So those are the best colors I'd recommend for using for highlighting and adding shadows to red. Green I showed before, you can add green. It's really complemented well with yellow and purple as well. You can have colors, let's see, black. Black works really well. I know I mentioned before, stay away if you're trying to make it really colorful, stay away from putting black in the shadows. But it's kind of inevitable if you're painting something that is black. And so really what you want to focus on with black is the colorful highlights. And if you want to make a warm sort of black, which is kind of hard to achieve, you can highlight it with purple, because the purple, even though we've used it before as a shadow, it's brighter than the black, so it's okay to use that as a highlight. And work up from there. You can add like a pale blue or something like that. If you wanted to start making a cold black, you can start highlighting it with blues. This pale blue being the very highest of the highlights. Blues, if you're wanting to make colorful highlights of blue and colorful shadows as well, blue is actually very straightforward. There's not a whole lot you can do. You can venture out to something like turquoise, which isn't a true blue of any sorts, but it can complement it quite well. There's purple, if you're painting something that's purple, a purple cloak or something. Bizarrely enough, orange complements it really well. You have to use just a little bit, but it highlights it very well. You can get a darker purple in this, or you can even add a blue as a shadow. So that works really well for colorful highlights. So one of my favorite colors to paint with colorful shadows and highlights is the color white, which you think would be super straightforward because it's just white. So add some gray in the recesses and then highlight it to white. Turquoise is my favorite to base coat something with and then work it up from there. So you can add turquoise, and then you can start adding progressively lighter blues, and then highlight it finally with your main color of white. Or I've done it before where I've started with purple. I've made a very warm sort of white, and put purple in there and added like a warm sort of gray, and then worked it up to white from there. That's always fantastic. If you're working with like leather, any sort of tanny sort of color, if it's going to be brown in the end. It works really well if you're working with like a dark Prussian blue as a shadow in that, or purple. Purple works as well, depending on if you want it warm or cold, of course. And then yellow is a fantastic highlight for brown. Yellow, or you can use like a sort of, I don't know, pumpkin-y sort of brownish yellow sort of color to highlight the brown. That always works very well. I guess that's it. A good demo of sorts of colors that you can use in shadows. You're definitely not limited to the color, the straight color that you're putting down.